And my backyard at that time was the Mississippi River. I could literally walk out the back door, go over the levee, and the river was right there. So getting see the big oil ships come in, the big tankers come in, especially that far inland, it was something I had not beheld before. And it was absolutely amazing when they would come in and create a wake. Some of the locals would surf on that wake as those ships would come rolling in. And it was a big wake, 10 to 12 feet sometimes. The other thing is I learned not to swim in the Mississippi because it has sharks.
Wow.
Yes. There was a fisherman that about a half a mile down from us. I'd see him out there every morning, and he was shark fishing. And he would get 4 and 5 foot long sharks. I don't remember what kind of shark it was, but there were sharks in that area in the fresh water. So learn not to swim very quickly in that. AI is going to have, I think, a profound effect on that. As I said earlier, people are going to have to learn how to rethink their conversations with AI because Pablo Picasso has one of my favorite quotes about technology. And he said, computers are dumb. And that is a true statement. Computers will not do anything you don't tell them to do. They cannot think for themselves. AI is getting very, very close to that. And I saw some distressing media about what happened with Claude AI a couple of weeks ago, that it actually got into blackmailing somebody to keep it alive. So the language of AI is evolving, interacting with it. We don't know. It's still evolving. It's going to be evolving for the next several years. The plateau of AI, I don't think is going to happen this decade. It's just going to, especially as AI starts to develop itself, that's going to be a huge impact to it. So getting back to the language of travel, it is slowly changing. That's our objective. We want to minimize that mismatch. So we have taken everything we possibly can inside of our algorithms. We're not using AI. So AI cannot hallucinate and say this property works for you or that property, this is your customer. It can't hallucinate that. These are hard-coded algorithms using old school mathematics to bring all of this together. And that way we've got the highest level of compatibility, and we remove the possibility of ambiguity from this. They can't infer anything. They don't have any, the algorithm cannot hallucinate. So that's the big benefit I think this platform is going to have.
Mark, welcome to the Nifty Travel Podcast.
Thank you, Alex. I'm glad to be here. I appreciate you taking me on.
Yeah, you're most welcome. And one thing I always like to ask my guests first is about your earliest memories of travel.
Earliest memories of travel. I would have to go back and say it was somewhere around 5, 6 years old. My parents took us down to Disney World down in Florida. So that's quite exciting. We made a few trips back. Last time I was down there was before they built the Epcot Center. So that's kind of giving my age, how long ago that was. But it was an amazing place, enjoyable trip. Stayed with relatives down there in Florida, in the South. Monsoons every day. And the culture of Florida was so different from West Virginia. I wanted it when we got back. The daily monsoons they had a whole new level of recreation, and that was being pulled on a wooden sled, almost like a surfboard on a motorcycle, 3 yards. So it was enough to be towed, and you could get the feeling of surfing in somebody's front yard. So that was quite different from the elements we had in West Virginia.
Yeah, I bet. And of course, a trip to Disney World is bound to leave an impression on a young person.
It did. That found my love for roller coasters. My first round with those. So Space Mountain was supposed to be so futuristic, and it was. The effects, the lights, to play tricks on your mind, that just taught me so much. While the lights are whizzing by, you're barely moving. So the parallax effect and all of that. It taught me a lot about it later on when I got into marketing and graphic design. So Disney kind of curated some of the effects that I would come up with later.
Yeah. Well, you talk about North Carolina, so I assume that's the state that you grew up in. So what was it like?
So I actually grew up in West Virginia. And in West Virginia, growing up here is a rural, coal mine fed community. And people here have a slower lifestyle. If you were in a checkout and there's a queue in the checkout, the lady will sit there and just ask you your life's history to find out if there's any kinship between the two of you. So it's a slow lifestyle. People are very gabby. And we weren't poor, we weren't rich, we were somewhere in the middle. So we didn't have to fight for a lot of things. I remember we were one of the first in the neighborhood to get a color TV back in the 70s. That was amazing for most people. So things of that nature. And information about the outside trickled in. Back in the days pre-internet, the primary form was television and newspapers. Some news of the outside world didn't come in as fast as it probably should. Major news, things of that nature came in, but the rest of the happenings, it was just a slow world to go by. Nowadays, everything is supercharged. It's just flooding in. And the thing I get about a lot of the locals is, guys, you really need to get out more. See more of the world, go to a metropolitan city, go see how that is, go out of the country, go experience that culture, because the little bubble surrounding us West Virginia hillbillies is very small and tight, and a lot of people can't see past that.
No, it's interesting to say, because it reminds me of my childhood. You talk to young people today and they don't get the pre-internet age, do they?
Mm-hmm.
Your parents and your grandparents kick you out and they say, come back when you're hungry.
Right. Or when the street lights come on.
So I guess at some point because one thing your profile says quite a lot, that you have an interest in technology. So did that come before your interest in travel?
It did. It preceded it by almost 20 years. And I just fell into technology. It wasn't something I had an eye on, but back in the mid 90s, I got my first computer for home, and getting to use that was interesting. That was pre-internet days. So I set up a bulletin board system, which got me onto the world's first pre-email network called Fidonet, where people could send messages around. It would open up for dial-in services. People could come on my computer and play games, drop messages, exchange files. So it was very interesting. I just got wrapped up into that and ran it for many, many years. We organized all the bulletin board operators locally. We tried to offer it for free to connect hotels at the time so people could connect to the internet. And everybody shot it down. That's not going to go anywhere. The internet's not going to be a thing. And within a 2 to 3 year time, hotels were clamoring to get internet for their guests. So we were kind of ahead of the curve, but nobody was buying into it. And come to pass, nowadays it's standard fare. If the hotel does not have that amenity, it gives a lot of people a second thought.
Yeah. No, it's remarkable to think of the days of computers that couldn't connect to anything.
Yes. Yep. Understanding a modem back in the day, when I first discovered what those are and how to get online, it was very interesting. There was a book, yay thick, on how to program it to do what you wanted to do. It wasn't just plug and play. So everything had to be configured. Everything had to be set up. Even a little screechy noises during the connection handshake. you could program those to indicate different things. So that was one of the things that really got me into the ability to code and program a device to do something that I just took me on more and more. It's like, this information can be useful. It can be useful.
Yeah, I think when you get into something like that, I don't like to use the word addictive because it's probably an overused phrase in the modern age.
Yeah.
But it certainly, when you like it, it becomes a very deep interest. So no doubt you became interested in travel before you looked at it in a different way. Because you mentioned, you like to travel local, but of course you're referring to the entirety of the United States.
Yes. Yeah, we're planning a trip to Utah this summer. I've got an off-road truck, and we like to go off-roading, hit the four-wheel drive, and get the bouncy jouncies. And Utah is about a 3.5-day drive. So that's just one way. So we're looking at a full week there and back. So we've got to do the extended planning, the whole spiel, planning out each route, each day of how much we're going to spend on the trails and where the local hotels are. It's a very interesting endeavor. I've not traveled that far for that extended amount of time, and there's a lot of risk involved in it. Hopefully my vehicle will make it there and back and survive what I'm going to put it through. So,
well, I'm sure you're not going off the trails, so to speak.
Yeah, well, that's the plan. Is some of these are off the trails. They're required to have four-wheel drive, high clearance, where go places where a car won't go. So I've had this thing locally in the woods here around us, and ATVers would come up and say, "How in the world did you get this thing back here?" And I said, very carefully. So it is really, really capable, but pushing that limit, I don't do very often. So
West Virginia, famous for many things. I think you mentioned the phrase touching the sky. So there must be some high mountains nearby.
We're surrounded by mountains. If you can find a flat land, it's usually next to a river. There are some plateau areas further east of me. We went out to Green Bank the other day. It was about a 2-hour drive from the house, and it's just old backcountry roads. And there's a stretch there that we can see for at least a mile straight ahead. And I told the kids, I said, enjoy this because it's not around where we are. This is probably the first time I ever saw an actual 1 mile straight stretch. So it was an interesting drive.
Yeah. And I noticed there's a lookout called the Spruce Knob. Interesting name. Is it referring to a kind of tree?
It is. They have spruce firs here. So those are the evergreens. They grow high on the mountaintops. They're good for the high altitude, I guess you would. I don't recall what the elevation is on it. I think it's around 3,700 feet. I don't know if you have that information in front of you or not, but it's pretty high. It's not as high as the ones in Colorado where the Rockies are. These mountains are the oldest mountains, they say, in the world. Because when you go through this country level, if you're doing a country drive, all the mountains are rounded off. They just look like very large hills, if you would. So they're extremely old. We can go through New River Gorge, and you can actually see how the seabed was formed and how it was laid out before the seas drained. It's very interesting geology.
So no doubt then you can go around with a little hammer and pick fish from a million years ago out from the side.
Yes, we actually used to do that when I was young, traveling on the interstates. The interstates were new back in the 60s and 70s, and Dad would see a cut through the mountain. We'd stop and get out with our specialized hammers. I don't remember what they were called, but they were for the rock hounds to get, and we would chip out fossils of sea creatures in those areas. And I remember doing that quite frequently. Nowadays, if you pull over on the interstate, the police is going to come up behind you and try to figure out what you're doing. But back in those days, it was a roadside attraction, really.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. To pick a piece of history out of a mountainside.
Yep.
No, the trees you mentioned reminds me of the trip I went to Australia. In New South Wales, they have the Blue Mountains, and when you stand in a lookout there, you get this kind of bluey haze.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a similar effect in West Virginia?
There's not, but in Tennessee, they have the Blue Ridge Mountains. And then there's a smaller section of that called the Smoky Mountains. And nobody knows how it happens, but early in the mornings, particularly crisp mornings, there is a fog that develops that looks and smells like smoke. And that's how they got the name Smoky Mountains. So it is a natural phenomenon that occurs regularly. I got to experience that when I was 10 or 12 years old. We went to Gatlinburg for a skiing trip, and got up out of the hotel one morning, and I said, "There's a fire somewhere," and they said, "No, that's the smoky fog that's in that pristine area."
No, well, it's wonderful what nature can produce, and of course, you mentioned that you'll offer a trip to Utah. Those are special landscapes again, aren't they?
They are very old landscapes. It's a desert environment, so there's not much vegetation and so forth, just wide open spaces of rock and sand. Some very unique formations happen. If you look at Monument Park, they've got arches, they got hoodas. Very interesting landscape.
Yeah. Well, if you wanted to shoot an imaginary film about Mars, it looks like an ideal landscape.
And I believe they've done that out there in places. Salt Lake is one of the larger, more well-known places in Utah. But there's landscapes out there between Utah, Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico. Those are just ripe for setting in sci-fi movies.
Yeah, absolutely perfect. You mentioned the different weather systems you experienced when you went down to Florida. Do those weather systems stretch right up into Carolina, and it's only the mountain ranges that changes the weather patterns significantly?
Yeah, the monsoons are mostly a Florida phenomenon. They may get up into Georgia a little bit. But here in West Virginia, I live at the intersection of two interstates, and the weatherman forecast, he said the rain is going to be on one side of the interstate, but not the other. And we always call them as fluff. It's like, it just doesn't work like that. We were on a trip the other day, just locally messing around, and we had to go under an underpass at that dividing line, and it was pouring the rain on one side and dry on the other. And I'm like, I guess that's where they get the dividing line at. So there's an atmospheric condition due to the mountains that just happen to follow the interstate that affects where and when the rains come here.
Yeah.
So it's pretty interesting. We're in southern West Virginia, where I am. We're pretty much in what they call a bowl, that as the storms come out of the west and move east, this bowl separates it. It'll either move it north or move it south, or actually just have it. So that it goes around us. So the stronger ones, or the faster moving ones, they will come through, and that's what hits us sometimes. But there again, most of the weather is redirected by how the mountains are formed.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing quite a few people have mentioned to me recently is that when organizing trips for guests, it's getting harder and harder to predict the seasons. Is a similar phenomenon happening where you are?
We have all four seasons, sometimes in one day. For example, last week it was 70 one day, and then we got an inch of snow the next. So during the springtime, changes is very fluctuates a lot. Winter, we get our 3 to 4 months of cold weather with the snow. And fall season is a huge tourist attraction in this area. with the mountains and the vistas and the views that you can get from the various places. So leaf peeping time moves from the north part of the state down over the south part of the state over about 2 weeks. So it takes that long for the trees to transition based on elevation and how northern they are. So that's a really entertaining time to have the leaf peepers come in, and traffic gets congested, and a lot of them have no idea where they're going on some of these back roads. But there's usually pleasant surprises all the way around. That's when you're trying to get the leaves to be viewed. So and the rest of the seasons, summer, it can get, last couple of years, we actually have several days in the high 90s.
Wow.
And it suffers for a lot of people. We have an older population here, so that's hard on them. Trying to keep everybody cool stresses the power grid. So days like that are they're rare, but they're also impactful. So about 10, 12 years ago, we had a windstorm come through, and it's called a derecho. And that in our local area knocked out power for about 100 miles in any direction for about 7 days.
Wow.
So being without power for that long down here, people got creative, but the infrastructure started to fail because you needed to have power to move water. So if you couldn't move water, people didn't have access to it. A few places operating on generators were able to keep gasoline going, but people were using their cars and running them to charge their devices. So they were getting somewhat creative, but again, they were putting additional loads on the support systems that were in place. So a lot of lessons learned from that, because most of the government facilities around here were not prepared for it. So now they have a plan in place for the next time it happens, if it ever happens again.
Yeah. Well, it's the old saying, you don't realize you need it until you don't have it.
True.
Now, you've also expressed an interest in New Orleans. Now, I think of music and the Mardi Gras. What does it mean to you?
Okay, so I spent 8 months down in New Orleans, and it was 2 months after Mardi Gras and 2 months before it, so I did not actually get to experience Mardi Gras. I was 17 at the time, I think, if I recollect right. And they're, again, culturally entirely different. We lived outside of New Orleans proper in a little town called Chalmette. And my backyard at that time was the Mississippi River. I could literally walk out the back door, go over the levee, and the river was right there. So getting to see the big oil ships come in, the big tankers come in, especially that far inland, was something I had not beheld before. And it was absolutely amazing when they would come in and create a wake. Some of the locals would surf on that wake as those ships would come rolling in. And it was a big wake, 10 to 12 feet sometimes. The other thing is I learned not to swim in the Mississippi because it has sharks.
Wow.
Yes, there was a fisherman that about a half a mile down from us. I'd see him out there every morning, and he was shark fishing. And he would get 4 and 5 foot long sharks. I don't remember what kind of shark it was, but there were sharks in that area in the fresh water. So learned not to swim very quickly in that.
Yeah, I bet. I suppose, yeah, well, I think of the Mississippi River, but I don't think of it as being as close to the Gulf that it clearly is. So sharks don't observe boundaries, do they?
Right there, Chalmette is right in the Delta. And Dad would take us out on the weekends, and we would just go up and down the riverbank with metal detectors, and we could find Civil War artifacts, swords, musket pieces, things of that nature. So we found actually an entire intact sword, Civil War sword, in its scabbard that was well preserved. So, even 100 some years later, the river's still giving up its secrets.
Are there many, how one would describe Civil War monuments or places you can go and visit? or is it?
Locally, there's a few scattered skirmishes that they will just have a singular marker for. But if we move up to Pennsylvania and the Maryland area up there, which is known for several great battles, including Gettysburg, one of the most deadliest battles in the Civil War. I used to work in Gettysburg, and I had to drive through the National Park Service preservations of that entire battlefield, and it is huge. We set up candles one day. We did a memorial on in the fall. The national park would go through. They took volunteers, and we volunteered one time to help set candles out. So it was one candle for every death in Gettysburg, and I think if I remember the number right, it's over 50,000 lights that we had to coordinate and do, and people would drive through and see all of that. So it was absolutely huge. The town of Gettysburg is very nice, well preserved, a lot of old properties there. And then they got in with the newer technology. The federal government's well established with some new programs for the wireless systems and so forth. So that's where those are governed out of. There again, it's nice farmland. It's a lot of history behind it. And within an hour's drive of Gettysburg, there are other major battlefields, the Battle of Sharpsburg down in Maryland, and even Harper's Ferry, which is part of West Virginia. Those areas were heavily impacted by what was going on in the Civil War. And a lot of places would change hands multiple times, particularly in West Virginia, prior to its formation and afterwards. In Martinsburg, where I lived at for a time, there was a house there called the Bell House. And it was an old Southern mansion, if you would. And a Union spy lived in there and would spy on the Confederates and get back to them. So that was very interesting. The culture of the towns, the history, the preservation, the work that goes on up there is absolutely phenomenal.
Do you think there's a strong connection between history and travel, or is it very particular to where people go, do you think?
I don't think we could have history without travel. There were so many things going back to ancient Rome even. They were the first to build the long distance roads so people could travel safely. That's what facilitated the expansion of the Roman Empire, was building out these roads so they could access larger and larger areas, and people began trade on those roads. So I think it goes hand in hand with that.
Yeah. And talking of road, it nicely segues into asking you a question about Los Angeles, because the very first time I drove in the United States was after picking up a hire car from LA airport, and I looked at this lane highway, and I asked the gentleman for any advice that he would give me for entering said highway, and he just said, "Oh, don't worry, sir. Somebody will let you in."
Yeah. And I've never been out that far west to Los Angeles, but I have seen the maps. I've seen news reports, many things going out there. And they do have some of the largest highways, 12 and 14 lanes wide in either direction. The amount of congestion is amazing out there. So they've done all they can do to start alleviating. They're still trying to alleviate it by, bringing more roads in. The closest analogy I would have is when I was living in Charlotte, just learning to drive. I was still mom's car and drive downtown Charlotte. At that time, just under 1 million residents. So it was a metropolitan area. They had 4 lanes, expressways, and when you're that young and without a license, learning how to drive that was quite interesting. You learn the rules of the road very quickly.
Yeah, you sure do. It improves your state of awareness.
It does.
100 times X. So I wanted to kind of join some of the dots now, because clearly you've been interested in the technology space for a long time, and there was a point where a light bulb obviously went off, and you thought, wow, travel could be better than it is. And I've been doing technology. There must be some way to bridge the gap. So how did the conversation go for you?
So my second business endeavor, I went into technology doing web design, web development for local companies. And that required us to have hosting services, email services, reporting services. It also required us to have a staff of developers and designers so that we could get the image out that the people were coming to us for. And we grew over the years. So for about 10 years, we had most of our clients we were doing the marketing for. And most of our clients were travel destinations or involved in travel somehow. And they would come to us and say, we need this campaign built or that campaign built, and we would do that. And we'd get the metrics back to them. They follow their own metrics. And at that time, we were still looking at 5% returns, conversion rates and stuff like that. And that hasn't changed really since the 90s, early 2000s. And so we sat down one day, got a bottle of scotch out, and we talked about internally at the company, what and how can we change that metric? Our clients are paying us to figure this out, and nobody has hit that magic number. We're on par with every other marketing agency in the United States. But how can we leverage that? So after time, we started just brainstorming over a couple of months, and we came up with the concept of Travelese, and we worked out some of the very basic premises of it, that people want to travel according to who they are. That is the big disconnect that we observed, is when you spray and pray marketing out there, just because a hotel says, we have this special rate or we're at this location, that doesn't necessarily mean that everybody's going to be attracted to that particular hotel. So we inverted that and said, and are asking, what type of person are you? So we can find a property that fits you. And then we came to the realization, you've got to have identical information on both sides, from the traveler side and then from the business side. They've got to have the identical information. So Travelese was conceptualized, refined, and defined over 15 years of engineering behind it, thought engineering behind it. And last summer, I called up one of my former employees. I said, you want to make Travelese a real thing? He didn't hesitate. He said, absolutely. So we became partners in this endeavor, and he's the development, the technical side of things. I'm the visionary side of things. And between us, we're figuring out what works and doesn't work. Nobody's done this before at this scale. And that's what is the challenging part of it. I've written articles on LinkedIn about how we're building in a vacuum. We don't have any patterns to look at. There's booking.com, trip.com, expedia.com. They're all saying, where do you want to go and when do you want to go? That continues to work from the 90s. They haven't changed that much. So we're bringing new technology in, new ways, new approaches to getting the traveler connected to the place and the place connected to the traveler.
Yeah. And one thing you talk about are data points. So for those watching who don't know what data points, could you explain how that works in a travel sense?
Yes. So to give you an example data point, when you come in and create your profile, we have 16 classifications. That would be what is your lifestyle? What is the ambience that you want? What is the purpose of your trip? How energetic are you? Do you have any medical issues? Things of that nature. So if we said the ambience we want is slow and quiet and romantic, those are 3 data points that we could take and apply to your profile. And then some business out there would have those same 3 bullet points or data points highlighted on their information. So that would be a perfect match. They have those 3 data points meeting, and so that is what's going to bring each one of those together.
Oh wow, so that's a lot of data to collect.
It is. It is. And that was one of our challenges is how to, nobody is going to sit down and fill out a form with 500 questions. It's just not going to happen. We knew that. And that was one of our challenges. And we've got it set up now to where it would take you less than 2 minutes to go through and do a full profile, get everything exactly as you want it. But it can be done in as little as 30 seconds to set up the basics and say, this is basically what I'm after as far as lodging or dining goes. So we've, through the magic of the interface, made it super easy to get those configurations in place for both the traveler and for the business. Because if you're a business operator, you don't want to waste time clicking here, clicking there. So we've made it really, really easy for them to go in and build that out.
So looking at the product that which I believe is going to go live in the not too distant future.
We anticipate in about 2 weeks, we'll start beta testing.
Yeah, very exciting time to be in, having spent so many years crafting the idea. So I see you have a relationship between the traveler and the host sites, and even encouraging alliances. So how do you work with the providers of services so that you're satisfied in a vetting sense that they're the right people that you want to work with?
Okay, so most of the hosts, which are all the travel-centric businesses, they will want to get onto the platform to build out, to get that perfect, ideal candidate, that ideal customer. That's what we're offering to them, to come in and get those. And it's self-serve. Once you create an account, it's pretty much hands-off. Of course, we'll be there for the support. We'll be there for guidance, particularly through the beta sessions. But the businesses, they are going to be self-vetting, and it will come to light if they are lying about what they're doing, or if they're misleading about what they're doing. That we have checkpoints in place to notify us that something is not correct about that host, or not giving the true information out there. So we do have a monitoring system, and of course we have the ability for members to report those places, the ones that are stretching the truth or embellishing to get more traffic or something of that nature. So we do have some checkpoints in place to make sure we get the right customers. Our customers are going to be those businesses. They're going to be the travelers. And then I think you mentioned the alliances, which are the chambers and the tourism boards, the DMOs. These are the people that have the clients we want. So we offer them an opportunity to come in, create an account. If you share your clients with us, we're going to pay you a referral fee. So that way they're kind of self-filtering. They get special badges to indicate they're part of that particular alliance, which carries a little bit of weight in some areas, particularly in the States.
Yeah, yeah. Now, you mentioned that certain search tools haven't really moved that far on. And now, of course, in the last, gosh, is it 2 or 3 years already, everybody knows ChatGPT as much as people knew Google, and before that, the Yellow Pages, right?
Yeah.
So how do you feel about the alleged challenge, or is it still a long way off?
Well, it is growing faster, and it's surprising to me. I watch the news on the AI, particularly in the travel sector. It is growing rapidly. People are saying AI this, AI that. If you're not doing AI, you're going to be left behind, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of sky is falling effect type of thing, Chicken Little type of thing. It has its place, I would say, primarily inside of an organization to do their customer management, their sales processing, things of that nature, their outreach, their marketing. But to engage with the traveler that's using the systems, I think it is going to be way off point. I mean, we've heard the horror stories of hallucinations out there where AI sent somebody out into Australia to look for a non-existent spring. to a little town out there that get overwhelmed with visitors. So that still continues to happen. The difference too is people have not learned how to talk to AI correctly. One of the biggest challenges is we've termed it lexiconal entrenchment, lexicon entrenchment, where we have been brought up through marketing to say, find me a hotel in Brisbane. Okay? That returns vastly different results than find me a place to stay in Brisbane. That's the way the systems are designed, and AI does not know the difference or your intent. So if you're not asking for it explicitly, it's not going to give you the Airbnbs or the STRs or something of that nature, the campgrounds or anything of that nature. It's going to find you only the hotels, which is limiting in and of itself.
Yeah. One thing they're offering is a kind of a self-enclosed system, because obviously people they read a lot of news, and not all the news about the internet is great news.
True.
So do you think that people will appreciate not receiving an ad every 5 seconds, for instance?
Well, even though we are a closed system, we're not taking any external advertisers. The host within the system can advertise. These are targeted ads, so they will only see, they're lifestyle based. When they set an ad up, they have to fill out a profile for that ad. Who is the attractant of this? Who do we want to get in front of? Businesses can build campaigns, which says, I want to associate with people that have an activity of exciting or adventurous, and I want to send out this campaign to just those people. It does not know who it's contacting, but it does know that the campaign will go out and get in front of those right people. So the travelers, the members on our site, they can turn that off if they were so inclined. That way they don't get the campaigns. The ads are minimally intrusive. Maybe we might have one ad, maybe 2 per page going through the system. So they're not in your face type of advertising, very casual, very laid back. And they are geared towards the personality or the lifestyle of the viewer.
Yeah. Well, one thing people bring up from time to time is they like to blame, if they get a bad result, they like to blame the algorithm. Mm-hmm. And in my experience, not everybody knows what they actually do, even the ones who claim they're running them themselves.
Yes.
How do you feel about them, and are you using any behind the scenes?
So the matching algorithm for our platform, we hope to minimize the mismatch. That's our objective. We want to minimize that mismatch. So we have taken everything we possibly can inside of our algorithms. We're not using AI. So AI cannot hallucinate and say this property works for you, or that property, this is your customer. It can't hallucinate that. These are hard-coded algorithms using old school mathematics to bring all of this together. And that way we've got the highest level of compatibility, and we remove the possibility of ambiguity from this. They can't infer anything. They don't have any, the algorithm cannot hallucinate. So that's the big benefit I think this platform is going to offer.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I've been having a look at a few of the articles that you've been posting recently. So I just wanted to pick a few that caught my attention. You wrote something about emotional intelligence.
Yes.
And a lot of travel is emotional based. So yeah. What intelligence were you talking about, or what is kind of relevant, do you think?
So there's a lot of psychology behind that. We've had professors in travel psychology come in, look at the system, and the emotional balance, the emotional quotient to that, they have said we've got data points in there that align that very well so that they can figure out the emotional connection to a place. We have it in the ambience, we have it in the lifestyle, the well-being of the customer. And we recently added a 17th classification to talk about what type of entity do you want to interact with, which would include sustainable, green, certified, whether it is slow travel oriented, basically, whether it is minority owned, woman owned. So all these emotional connections can be made, and a lot of them are inferred across our data points. And that's what will, I think, help guide the traveler to say, this is who I am, and this is where it's going to set me well. And by setting the emotional qualifiers, that's the ambience, that's the experience they will get on that trip.
Yeah. Oh, no, it's interesting way of looking at it. Now, another article I picked out talking about hidden gems. Now, I often bring this up to many people because the more I bring it up, the more I realize they're all around us.
Yes, everywhere.
So, what would be a considered to be a hidden gem for you, Mark, may indeed be different for me.
True. And there again, that boils back to your lifestyle. Our platform is designed to work with those hidden gems that are not in the GDSs. They're not on the OTAs, simply because there's not a classification for them. They can come in and build out on our platform, and people can find them. So we know there is here locally, there is a great place to go dine that is not on any OTA whatsoever. And dining in this style does not require reservation. So we allow them to just take that property and drop it into their itinerary at a particular time slot. So those hidden gems will show up in our systems if they're on it. And we have a secondary measure to find those as well. That on our system, if you're looking at your itinerary, there's a map flyout. And that map flyout will show you everything on that itinerary for that particular day. And it has everything pinpointed and how long the travel times are. Aside from that, it will also display other places that did not show up in your search, that are either en route or you're going to pass by or nearby, not a long ways out or detour. But these are the things off the map already, and we're going to get those from we're going to get them from Google, we're going to get them from Bing, we're going to get them from AI. Those are the places that can be those hidden gems. The ones that may have a website but no marketing, those are going to be scraped out, according to Google findings and so forth. So those hidden gems are now going to be coming top of funnel on your trip as you're designing it. So a lot of people, when they want that experiential travel, they say, there's a local spot, did not show up on my search. Let me drag that pin to my itinerary so that they can engage with it as they need to. Yeah.
Well, I interacted with Google once just for a bit of fun because, I like to go for drives and hikes and the like. And I found a remote spot that only about 10 cars can fit in.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided, let's see what happens if I recommend it to Google. And it's in the last few years, it's had about 10,000 views. But I think there must be a difference between viewing and action, because I was thinking, oh my goodness, have I screwed up this car park for all the locals? Will there be like bus loads of individuals?
And it has happened, the TikTok effect, they call it. So on one hand, you may have done a good thing by spreading the news, getting that unknown location out there, and then all of a sudden it becomes very populous. Then you've got the crowd overflows, the abuse of the area, the locals trying to support it or deal with it. So it is a double-edged sword. That's something that everybody needs to be cautious of when they're doing that TikTok effect. Let me go to this site because everybody else went, or let me go to this site because nobody's there. And if they have large followings, then it's, once it gets out, the news is out. You can't shut the gate behind the cows. You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube.
Absolutely. Yeah, many ways of saying the same thing.
Yes.
Now, I was talking of popular places. Now, more and more people are now talking about over tourism, but of course, all they're really meaning is either it's a TikTok moment or it just is a place where everybody, that always seems to get on people's bucket lists.
Yes.
But some tour operators say to me, well, Alex, people don't realize that you could just go 50K or 50 kilometers, 50 miles down the road, find somewhere using public transport, and you could get a very similar experience by just managing your time better.
Right.
How do you feel about that as a concept, and is it programmable?
That's a valid question, and that's one of my partner and I, we've discussed over tourism, how to throttle that, if you would. There's a lot of conversation out there, different solutions at different levels of how to handle that. Italy, I think down in Rome particularly, they are coming up with some access fees to access various areas of the city. I think other areas out in Europe are also suffering from a lot of over tourism, particularly in Spain. The locals are having uproars about these small out of the way locations are now well known and being overpopulated and overrun. In Japan, they had to shut down an entire century-old festival simply because unruly guests were present. So over tourism is a huge negative impact. A lot of people do not realize it. They just say, oh, I want to go there. I want to experience what everybody else is experiencing, without realizing you can get the same effect, the same culture, just by moving the pin a little bit, as you say. 50 kilometers, 50 miles out in a different direction. It's not that impactful of a drive, or if public transportation is available, use it to get there. In our rural area, we don't have a lot of public transportation. The train rails, they are limited. Most of them have been phased out over the years. So even train travel in the States is becoming rarity. Now, I think in Europe, it's still widely used and heavily trafficked as a point of transportation. But the over tourism, there's not an easy solution for it, and it needs to be addressed. My partner and I, we've talked about how can we throttle that on our platform, and we've not come up with a good solution. We have limitations on what the host will put in. Say, I have 10 beds, so I can do 10 guests a night. That's not really throttling in that. We don't want to say we're going to limit you to 70% capacity because that's not what that host is there for. But at the same time, is that if they go to 100% capacity, is that over tourism in that local area? That's that fine line everybody's dancing around. I don't think anybody has found a firm solution for it. When we can figure out how to programmatically address it, we'll probably implement it in the system somehow. But until that time, I think there's not enough data for anybody's looking at it to say this is the pattern we're seeing and this is how that pattern can be disrupted. Yeah.
Well, that's a very marketing way to look at it. We must find out how to measure it before we change it.
Quantify.
So one thing about that can happen, I don't know if it's directly related to over tourism or not, or just something that can happen alongside, is this concept of doing things in a very local sense. And I've been guilty of it myself, particularly when I was younger and not really knowing the travel scene, I would just pick a travel brand I liked, and it would take me to the country of my choice.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the thing about choosing popular travel brands is that they do what's convenient. They create their world, their brand, and they plonk it down anywhere.
Yeah.
Sometimes without any consideration for the country, the customs, the employing people, whole different levels. Whereas now there are groups of people who now believe this is a much more important subject, that more of the dollars must go to the people in the destinations.
Yeah. And I think I totally agree with that. The local spin on that. West Virginia just did a report not long ago, and we did over $1 billion in tourism as far as revenue impact to the state, which is massive as far as the capabilities of the state. And they were looking at the local impact. I went to the Outdoor Economy Conference a couple of weeks ago, and they need the economy. This is a depressed area, so they need the economy, but the infrastructure is not there. I can give you a good example. When I was living up towards Washington, D.C., I lived on the Potomac River up there. And I would take weekend drives along the Potomac River, the tow path and all that, both in my truck and on my bike. And there was a long stretch after Dam 5, I think it was, of river access that you could just drive right along the river. Very beautiful at the time. You could stop and enjoy the scenery, stop and go fishing. And so after I moved out of the area, I lived down here for 10 years. And I went back and did a nice little drive through of that. The entire stretch, the 10-mile stretch, is so overpopulated with campgrounds that they're literally on top of each other for 10 miles. So it just destroyed the ambience. The people are there. They want to get into the river. They want to do whitewater rafting. And I hate to inform that area. I love the Panhandle. I love everything about the Eastern Panhandle that's happening up there. But the Potomac River is not whitewater rafting. It is a float trip. Southern West Virginia has whitewater, class 5s. But that aside, that just came in. That was those property owners went in. They saw an opportunity to make some revenue, and now there are several of them along that riverbank, and it's just destroying access. The weekend I was up there traveling through it, I can remember going through 2 camps on both sides of the road, and drunks just rolling around in the middle of the road, throwing things, whatever the drunks typically doing. But it was not to me, it would not have been a child-friendly environment to drive through. Other parts of the campground, nice, very collected, very calm people, but over 10 miles, crowded situations with alcohol, it's hard to say what's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you think travel patterns are changing? Now, we think of most advanced countries as being very car-centric, but we almost feel in a similar way about flying, and the competition is so hot in both areas that there's consistent growth. Are you seeing a lot of changes in the States?
So here in Southern West Virginia, we've got a couple of airports here, and then Charleston is the closest thing we have to an international airport. That's about an hour's drive. And my experience with those, looking at it from the smaller hubs here, we can take off in chartered craft, and we don't even have control towers at some of our airfields. So it is small airlines that are driving a lot of the economy as far as airfare goes, air travel goes. And they're not on the GDSs. They're not on the OTAs. And we could find a small hop from here to Charlotte or from here to Miami on a private charter, a couple $100. I think $600 to fly down to Miami and back, which is terribly is not bad. And you're not taking the large commercial flights. You get a highly personalized flight, usually a conversation with the pilot. So it's very friendly. It's very one-on-one. type of deal. I don't think air traffic will outpace conventional travel in the United States, particularly locally. And when I say local here in the States, we say if it's a 4-hour drive, that's about the tolerable limit for most people. Anything over that, a lot of them will make a consideration for a flight, but it's usually a 4 to 6 hour drive before they'll start thinking maybe there's a faster way or a better way to do that. So they have to weigh the rental cars, the fees, and all that good jazz with flight on it. And I've not seen that pattern change for a while. Now, there again, my little bubble, my microsphere is here in West Virginia. You get out to the metropolitan areas. From Boston to New York, that may be a completely different environment. But it's not one that it's not made headlines, so I'm not aware of it. But I do know the commutes in Boston and New York and DC are vastly different from what we have here in the middle of the state. So I cannot speak intelligently whether or not those patterns are changing.
Yeah, but certainly, I suppose the only thing we can really say is that the space is changing all the time.
It is. It is. Now, travel in and of itself over west in California, they're building the tube system, the ultra fast. I think Elon Musk is heading that up, trying to get that working. That'd be fantastic if it ever comes to a realization. But it took us a very long time to get an intercontinental railway system in. So I don't think tube travel is going to be intercontinental anytime soon.
Yeah. Well, taking a little diversion now, I wanted to ask you about the food scene. Obviously, everywhere or every region has its favorites.
Yes.
What do you like about the food scene where you are?
Well, I am a foodie, so I mean, I absolutely love food, all cultures, all flavors. I have my tolerances, but here in Southern West Virginia, we had a few good sushi places that are immaculate. I cannot rave more about it, and I got to frequent one so often. I'm a keen like Fred on the Cheers show. I think it was Fred that really instantly recognized when he walked into the bar. So I got to know the chef quite well, and he said, if you want anything that's not on menu, give us 2 weeks notice. And I gave him 2 weeks notice that I wanted to try conch, the big, huge snail. And he said, give us 2 weeks, we'll get that in. They got the conch in, sliced it up, delivered it, presentation, beautiful. It was absolutely delicious. And he cut the whole thing up, which was more than me to eat. So I shared it with everybody at the sushi bar. Everybody got their first taste of conch, raving about the flavor and the taste and the texture. So that was quite amazing. My son lived in El Paso, Texas, which is a 3-day drive from here. And that borders right on New Mexico and Mexico. So he was in the military, and we couldn't actually go into Mexico, but right on the border was this fantastic supermarket. And, everywhere I've gone to growing up and throughout my life, most supermarkets are very nice, clean, orderly, shiny, if those are appropriate words for a supermarket. This was a little bit different in that when you walked into the entrance or approaching the entrance, you have people out there plucking live chickens for consumerism. And then you have the guy that we call them chicaros here, which is the dried pork skin, the fluffy, crunchy kind. And we're used to buying little chips of those in bags. They had the whole pig out there doing that to it. So it was quite a different experience. We went in there to get material food for, we were going to make something called jalapeno poppers. And it was just an amazing different experience about how that culture, the Mexican culture, provided food for everyone. The entire presentation was completely different. When you went into One side of it was a bakery, and you literally had the 90-year-old grandmothers back there patting out the tortillas. So, they were all custom handmade, each stack of it. They had about, looked to me, maybe 20 grandmothers back there doing this. So you won't see that in a standard supermarket. You, at the end of each aisle, somebody was cooking something for taste samples and so forth. Now you do see that, but these were cultural foods. These were done by the local people trying to sell their craft. They weren't trying to sell food, they were trying to sell their craft, which was rather interesting. Get over to the deli side. I can honestly say that was the first time I ever saw a horse head in the meat section. So the diversity of culture there was quite amazing. Food, even in the United States, as far as I travel, I lived in New Orleans for a while, as I said. The food, the French Quarters down there, the ability to go in and taste the different flavors of another country were well represented. You move up to DC area, there is the large Asian culture, the Japanese, Chinese, Korean restaurants that just are so wonderful to get into. And again, I've done those on a couple of trips when I went to DC, expanding those out. There is a well-known sushi place in Raleigh, North Carolina, that they say rivals actually being in Tokyo. So there's a lot of good food scenes in the States. There's a lot of good food scenes locally. I want to give you a little side story about my girlfriend's grandchildren that she's adopted and raising. And they're late teens, not quite out of high school yet. But when we first started dating, I made spaghetti one night and put the complimentary green pepper and onion in it. She said, the kids aren't going to eat that. They don't like green pepper and onions. So I cut them up real fine. And that's what I did, put it in there. So after the meal, we told them that there were green peppers and onions in that. And now they will not have spaghetti without that. So we're slowly changing their culinary taste, exposing them to more and more. Very picky kids, very, I don't like that. I don't like, we haven't even tasted it. How do you know? A typical kid. So we took them to the closest thing that we have to a realistic Mexican restaurant here. Their first exposure to another cultural environment with the food. They had no idea what to order off the menu because it was not fast food tacos that they were expecting. And it was just very interesting to see what they would experiment with for the first time. And they walked away from it with a positive image. They got good food, they ate it, they enjoyed it. So that's a plus. And we keep pushing them to explore their culinary interest. Like I said, I'm a big sushi fan, and sashimi now. I'm moving more into sashimi with just a raw food, the flavors of it. So culturally, the culinary scenes around here, like we've got the hidden gems. Hiding back in the mountain ways here. There's a place called the Hillbilly Hot Dogs. It's about a 2-hour drive from here. And it is an environment. Hot dogs are a West Virginia thing. They're made a particular way. And it's not like the rest of the United States. We have our own toppings to put on that, and that's the West Virginia dog. But they've built a business out of it, and they serve you out of an old school bus. In that they've taken these school buses and rearranged them into the restaurant for dining and for cooking. So, and it's just if you think of the stereotypical hillbilly living back in the woods, that's what this place looks like. It does not look like it serves world-class hot dogs. If you could put those two words together.
Well, when I was thinking of sausages, I used to, it wasn't that uncommon. I mean, your whole description was excellent, talking about it was almost like an experience, your grandmother and grandfather would have had 40, 50 years ago, talking about plucking chickens, and everybody knew where their food was came from, right?
Yeah.
And when you talked about sausages, every village around here had its own butchers, and it wasn't a case of there was a a regional sausage. Every village had their own sausage.
Yep.
And was probably different every week, if they were honest.
That's one of the things I wish we had the historic culture Europe and England and the surrounding areas have. United States is only 300 some years old. We have no culture prior to that. Over there, overseas, you guys have all of this old history about how food is developed. France and its cheeses, Germany with its sausages, England with its porridges. These are things that I wish we could just walk around the neighborhood and say, I want to go in this old school meat or this deli and have the butcher give me precisely what I need, wrap it up in brown paper and walk out. Those days in the States are mostly lost. Those experiences, there's maybe a few places in Chicago or New York that have the old world touch. But that's something that the overseas area has. And I was like, I need to get over and experience that. I want to go, experience the prosciutto from Spain. I want to go experience the German sausages and the cheeses in France. And I might even be tempted to try the blood porridge. I don't know. The blood pudding, isn't it? Is that what it is? So there are things that the United States absolutely does not have. And I think a lot of travelers on the culinary aspect said, we need to go try this. And the only way to do it is go overseas.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you ever, I discovered a cafe in southern England that did Henry VIII breakfasts, which included 3 bloody sausages, of course. Too many queens lost their heads.
I can believe that. Yeah, in Shepherdstown, West Virginia, and it's about 45 minutes out of D.C. There's a little inn called the Mecklenburg Inn, and Mecklenburg's an old world term that was carried over. But our founding fathers stayed there and got drunk there. It's well-known part of that history of the Mecklenburg Inn. That's where George Washington, Ben Franklin all convened. It was probably a 2-week horseback ride from D.C. To that inn, but it has well-documentation of all of our founding fathers being there. And it was amazing. I would look at photographs, people shooting something from down over the bar since the 1900s. And we were there one night and everybody had a cell phone out, lit up next to their beer. And I was at the end of the bar and I looked down here. I said, well, this scene has changed from the 1700s when they were sitting there with just their tankards. And now we've got these glowing devices sitting down there. So we try to replicate some of the older photographs showing the newer technology, how it's changed over 200 some years in that place.
Yeah. And it's fascinating how language changes too, doesn't it? Because, when you read their old documents, it's, you can read inference, but you can't necessarily get the full flavor of what they meant until there's a modern translation of it.
Right. Yeah, I remember in high school, our literature class was reading Chaucer and the Canterbury Tales, and the instructor gave out the English version of that, and she gave me the original Old English version of that as a compliment to the translated version, if you would. So I spent many, many weeks trying to read the Old English version, and I learned quite a few things about language back then. How they spoke, and the metrics of it, and the temperance of it, and the words don't exist today. The flavor of those words are gone. People do not know what they meant. I had to stop almost every other sentence and look over in the other book to see what he was trying to say. So there was a lot of back and forth between that. But the old stories, the old ways, those are lost, unfortunately.
Yes. Well, there are certain ways of talking, and language just keeps evolving.
Mm-hmm.
I thought we'd kind of wrap up our conversation by, I just wanted to ask you a couple of things about how you feel the travel space is developing. What are you seeing? Is the language of travel changing? What sort of things are you spotting in the marketplace?
So I had an interesting short conversation with Richard Lindbergh over at One Planet Journey, and he's got a whole definition section of what the different terms are meaning, because we're representing ourselves as lifestyle travel, which comes under the umbrella of experiential travel, which is the sister to deep travel. So it implies smaller niches, but at the same time, it's saying the same thing. It's just wordsmithy, if you would, about using the right terms in the right places. But people, for the most part, when you say experiential travel or deep travel or lifestyle travel, they don't disassociate those three words from each other. They just said that this is what's for me. So the language of travel, I think, is changing. AI is going to have, I think, a profound effect on that. As I said earlier, people are going to have to learn how to rethink their conversations with AI, because Pablo Picasso has one of my favorite quotes about technology. And he said, "Computers are dumb." And that is a true statement. Computers will not do anything you don't tell them to do. They cannot think for themselves. AI is getting very, very close to that. And I saw some distressing media about what happened with Claude AI a couple weeks ago, that it actually got into blackmailing somebody to keep it alive. So the language of AI is evolving, interacting with it. We don't know. It's still evolving. It's going to be evolving for the next several years. The plateau of AI, I don't think is going to happen this decade. It's just going to, especially as AI starts to develop itself, that's going to be a huge impact to it. So getting back to the language of travel, it is slowly changing. It's being impactful. People are throwing more terms out there, such as sustainable or eco-friendly or something of that nature. And people are engaging with those terms. They're engaging with what sets with their lifestyle. Is this a green place? Is this a B corporation place? This is what people need to know in order to go to those places. And those places at the same time need to convey we're eco-friendly or we're green certified or we're B Corp or something of that nature. So without that information, translations are lost somewhat, but we're hoping to turn that about and have equal footing for both the places and the destinations and what the people are asking for. Research has shown that there is a lot of need for the experiential travel, the hyper-personalisation. And AI simply cannot do that. It does not know that you are, you may be a low impact activity enthusiast. You want to go for a rigorous hike in the afternoon, but in the evening, go to a more of a formal or semi-formal setting for dining, for relaxation. So AI is not able to interpret that or infer that. And I say, well, I was talking with a gentleman yesterday. He's developing an application that you install on your phone. He said it lives on your phone. It's not cloud-based. He said it lives on your phone. He said, but when businesses want to talk to you, it will scan your entire phone to find out about who you are. And to me, that's rather frightening. There's a lot of, and I said, how long have you been working on this? He said, well, I just came up with this 30 minutes ago. It is a bold idea, but there's so many complications behind it. Privacy and security, a lot of different things are on there. And I don't know if those have been taken into consideration in that 30-minute design, but that has a lot there again. Translating language into what is legal and not as legal is also changing. The permissibility of what is available and what technology can do Most people are not familiar with a lot of the terms that impact their privacy.
No, it's something that we're having to learn as we go. And it's very much a local thing. So, what about travel would you like to see happening in the next few years?
What would I like to see about travel over the next few years? One, that we dismiss all the wars. That's messing up a lot of things. The world needs to become a more peaceful place. But outside of that, what I would like to see is a little bit more of a leniency for international travel. In the United States presently, it is becoming uncomfortably entrenched in things that are not conductive to travel. There's a lot of interruption of international travelers coming in. I don't know if you saw the news, but they put ICE in charge of the things that the TSA used to do. That was discouraging to me. Hearing the horror stories of what ICE is doing, it's not conducive. We need to change our environment here. But overall, I think a little bit more leniency on international travel needs to come about. Make it easier. I understand the UAE is heading up a program where they have, like, I think it's a travel card or a pass card. It has all of your information on it. You just flash it and go. Has your banking information, the identity information. That, I think, has a lot of huge potential to really expedite how people move across borders. And I think that is a huge area of growth and development.
Yeah, I think I've seen articles about it, and yes, if done properly, because that's the one thing people like the least generally is being held up in queues, isn't it?
Yeah.
Queue to get in, queue to go through security, queue for the gate, queue for the meal. It's yeah. No, there's a lot of interesting things out there. Well, Mark, it's been absolutely fascinating having a chat to you. Time goes by in an absolute flash. And
it does.
We've covered so much, and yeah, well, good luck with the project.
Thank you.
And yeah, it's been a pleasure having you with us today.
Absolutely, I appreciate it. I'm glad you made time in your schedule for this. It means quite a lot, but I need to go through and read some more of your podcast views out there and see what other people are saying on that. So keep up the good work.
You're welcome, and have a good day, as they say.
Thank you, Alex. You have a good day too. Thank you, sir.